The Great Unknown, A Journey Beyond Life. What happens after we die? This deceptively simple question has haunted humanity for as long as we have been capable of self-reflection. It is the ultimate riddle, a mystery that transcends time, culture, and geography. At its core lies an insatiable curiosity, a yearning to understand not just the mechanics of death but its meaning, its purpose, and its implications for our existence. To ask this question is to confront the very essence of what it means to be alive. Finite yet infinite, fragile yet enduring, ephemeral yet eternal. Why does this topic captivate us so deeply? The answer lies in three fundamental aspects of human nature: our fear of the unknown, our desire for meaning, and the inevitability of mortality. Each of these forces pulls at us in different ways, shaping how we think about, and ultimately prepare for, the end of life. Fear of the unknown is perhaps the most primal driver behind our fascination with death. From the moment we are born, we instinctively seek patterns, predictability, and control over our environment. Death, however, defies all attempts at mastery. No matter how much science advances or philosophy evolves, the finality of death remains shrouded in uncertainty. We cannot peer beyond the veil. We can only speculate, imagine, and hope. This lack of clarity breeds anxiety, compelling us to fill the void with stories, rituals, and beliefs that offer some semblance of order amidst chaos. Our desire for meaning adds another layer to this inquiry. Humans are wired to seek significance, to believe that our lives matter, that they contribute to something greater than ourselves. Death, by its very nature, threatens this narrative. If everything ends with the cessation of breath, then what was the point of striving, creating, loving, and suffering? Such questions gnaw at our psyche, urging us to construct frameworks that assign value to both life and death. These frameworks take many forms: religious doctrines, philosophical musings, artistic expressions, but their shared goal is to imbue mortality with purpose. Finally, the inevitability of mortality anchors this exploration in stark reality. Regardless of wealth, power, or privilege, no one escapes death's grasp. This universality renders it both intimate and impersonal, personal yet collective. It is a reminder of our shared vulnerability, binding us together across generations and civilizations. And yet, paradoxically, it also underscores our individuality. Each person approaches death differently, shaped by unique experiences, fears, and aspirations. Throughout history, cultures, religions, and philosophies have grappled with the enigma of death, offering diverse answers to the timeless question of what comes next. Ancient Egyptians believed in an elaborate journey through the Duat, a realm filled with trials and transformations, culminating in eternal life if one's heart proved pure. Their elaborate burial practices, from mummification to tomb construction, reflected a deep conviction that death was not an end but a transition. Similarly, Hinduism and Buddhism envisioned samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, governed by karma. Liberation from this cycle, known as moksha or nirvana, represents the ultimate spiritual achievement. In contrast, Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, offer visions of an afterlife defined by divine judgment. Heaven and hell serve as metaphysical destinations, rewarding virtue and punishing vice. These narratives provide comfort to believers, assuring them that justice prevails even when earthly systems fail. Meanwhile, secular philosophies like existentialism reject such assurances, emphasizing instead the freedom and burden of crafting one's own meaning in a universe devoid of inherent purpose. Scientific perspectives add yet another dimension to this discourse. While traditional views often rely on metaphysical explanations, modern science seeks empirical evidence. Neuroscientists study brain activity during near-death experiences, physicists explore quantum mechanics implications for consciousness, and biologists examine cellular decay. Yet, despite remarkable progress, science has yet to unravel the full complexity of death. Instead, it raises new questions. Is consciousness purely biological, or could it persist independently of the body? Could parallel universes harbor alternate versions of ourselves, continuing to exist long after our physical demise? These varied interpretations highlight humanity's boundless creativity in addressing the unknowable. They reveal not only what we believe but also what we fear, hope for, and cherish most deeply. By examining these responses, we gain insight into the human condition itself, a tapestry woven from threads of wonder, dread, longing, and resilience. Contemplating death carries profound emotional weight, influencing how we perceive and navigate life. On one hand, the awareness of mortality can make existence feel more precious, sharpening our appreciation for fleeting moments and meaningful connections. On the other, it can fill us with dread, casting a shadow over joy and prompting relentless questioning about whether anything truly matters. This duality shapes nearly every aspect of human behavior, art, and spirituality, leaving an indelible mark on individuals and societies alike. When faced with the certainty of death, many people experience what psychologists call mortality salience, an acute awareness of their own impermanence. This heightened state often triggers two opposing reactions: carpe diem or existential despair. Those who embrace the former adopt a seize the day mentality, prioritizing experiences, relationships, and passions. They travel to distant lands, express love freely, and pursue dreams without hesitation. For them, death serves as a catalyst for living fully, reminding them that tomorrow is never guaranteed. Conversely, those overwhelmed by existential dread may retreat into nihilism, convinced that nothing holds lasting significance. This internal conflict mirrors broader societal trends, where celebrations of life coexist alongside pervasive anxieties about loss and futility. Art becomes a powerful medium for processing these emotions, transforming abstract fears into tangible expressions. Literature, music, painting, and film frequently revisit themes of mortality, using allegory, symbolism, and metaphor to explore the ineffable. Shakespeare's tragedies probe the fragility of human ambition, while Van Gogh's swirling skies evoke the turbulence of inner turmoil. In contemporary cinema, films like The Tree of Life and Arrival grapple with grief and transcendence, inviting viewers to reflect on their place within the cosmic continuum. Through such works, creators distill complex feelings into universal truths, fostering empathy and understanding among audiences. Spirituality, too, emerges as a cornerstone of humanity's response to death. Whether rooted in organized religion or personal belief systems, spiritual practices provide solace, guidance, and community. Rituals surrounding death, funerals, memorials, vigils, help mourners process loss while reinforcing social bonds. Sacred texts and teachings frame mortality as part of a larger narrative, encouraging acceptance and trust in higher powers. Even skeptics find themselves drawn to meditative traditions like mindfulness and yoga, which emphasize presence and interconnectedness. By engaging with these practices, individuals cultivate resilience, learning to face death with grace rather than terror. However, the uncertainty of death extends beyond individual psychology, influencing cultural norms and institutional structures. Societies organize themselves around implicit assumptions about life and death, shaping laws, economies, and values accordingly. For example, inheritance laws assume continuity between generations, ensuring resources pass smoothly from one era to the next. Healthcare systems prioritize prolonging life, reflecting a collective commitment to preserving human dignity. Meanwhile, education instills skills and knowledge deemed essential for future survival, perpetuating cycles of growth and renewal. Yet, beneath these practical considerations lies a deeper truth. Our inability to predict or control death drives much of human innovation and adaptation. This tension between certainty and ambiguity defines the human experience. Death looms large, casting doubt on everything we hold dear. Yet, paradoxically, it also inspires acts of courage, compassion, and creation. By confronting our mortality head-on, we uncover reservoirs of strength and imagination, forging paths forward even when the destination remains unclear. In doing so, we affirm life's intrinsic worth, refusing to let fear overshadow beauty, connection, and possibility. But perhaps the answers lie not in distant realms but within ourselves. Let's begin by exploring one of the oldest ideas about what comes next, the soul's journey. As we stand at the threshold of this vast and uncharted territory, it is tempting to look outward for reassurance, to seek answers in celestial heavens, scientific laboratories, or ancient texts. Yet, embedded within each of these quests is a quieter, more introspective journey, the search for the soul. Across millennia, humans have speculated about the essence that animates us, pondering whether it survives the body's demise. Is the soul immortal, embarking on a voyage beyond the material plane? Or is it merely a product of neural activity, extinguished alongside consciousness? To delve into these questions is to embark on a path rich with mystery, wonder, and revelation. Join me now as we trace the contours of this timeless idea, tracing its origins, evolution, and enduring allure. The soul's journey, eternal continuation or illusion. The concept of the soul has been one of humanity's most enduring and universal ideas, transcending cultures, religions, and philosophies. It serves as a bridge between the physical and metaphysical realms, offering explanations for life, death, and what might lie beyond. Yet, despite its ubiquity, the nature of the soul remains deeply contested. Is it an eternal essence that survives the body's demise, or is it merely a psychological construct born of human imagination? To explore this question, we must first examine how different traditions define and interpret the soul, each offering unique insights into its potential existence or absence. In Hinduism, the soul, known as Atman, is considered an eternal, unchanging entity that resides within every living being. According to this tradition, the Atman is distinct from the physical body and mind, representing the true self. When the body dies, the soul embarks on a journey through samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This process is governed by karma, the moral law of cause and effect. Good actions lead to favorable rebirths, while bad deeds result in suffering. The ultimate goal is moksha, liberation from the cycle of reincarnation, achieved through spiritual enlightenment and union with Brahman, the universal consciousness. For Hindus, the soul's journey is not just a post-mortem phenomenon but a lifelong pursuit of self-realization and divine connection. Christianity presents a markedly different vision of the soul. In this tradition, the soul is often depicted as the immortal essence created by God, destined for eternal communion with Him or separation from His presence. Upon death, the soul faces divine judgment, determining its fate in either heaven, a realm of eternal bliss, or hell, a state of perpetual torment. Some Christian denominations also incorporate purgatory, a temporary intermediate state where souls are purified before entering heaven. Unlike the cyclical nature of Hindu reincarnation, Christianity envisions a linear trajectory, one earthly life followed by an irreversible afterlife. Here, the soul's destiny hinges on faith, repentance, and adherence to moral principles during mortal existence. Buddhism offers yet another perspective, rejecting the notion of a permanent, independent soul altogether. Instead, Buddhists embrace the doctrine of anatta, non-self, which posits that what we perceive as the self is actually a collection of impermanent, interdependent processes: physical form, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Death, therefore, does not involve the transmigration of a fixed soul but rather the continuation of these aggregates in new forms. Liberation comes in the form of nirvana, the cessation of craving and attachment, leading to freedom from the cycle of suffering and rebirth. While seemingly contradictory to Western notions of the soul, Buddhism still acknowledges a continuity of experience across lifetimes, mediated by karmic forces. Beyond religious frameworks, secular and philosophical interpretations complicate matters further. Materialist philosophies argue that the soul is an illusion, a product of human psychology designed to cope with mortality. They contend that consciousness arises entirely from neural activity, dissolving along with brain function at death. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus reject both traditional religious views and deterministic materialism, emphasizing individual freedom and responsibility. For them, the absence of an eternal soul underscores the urgency of crafting meaning in a finite existence. These perspectives challenge believers to reconsider whether the soul is a metaphysical reality or simply a projection of our deepest hopes and fears. Theories about the soul's nature extend into scientific domains as well. Neuroscientists investigate whether consciousness can be reduced to measurable brain states or if it possesses qualities that defy biological explanation. Quantum physicists speculate about the possibility of non-local consciousness, suggesting that aspects of the mind might persist outside conventional spacetime constraints. Such inquiries remain speculative, yet they highlight humanity's relentless quest to reconcile subjective experience with objective observation. Each tradition and theory brings its own lens to the question of the soul, reflecting diverse cultural values, historical contexts, and epistemological priorities. What unites them, however, is their shared attempt to address fundamental existential uncertainties. Who are we? Why are we here? And what happens when we leave this world? By examining these varied interpretations, we gain a richer understanding of how the concept of the soul shapes, and is shaped by, human thought and belief. Belief in, or rejection of, the soul carries profound implications for how individuals and societies navigate questions of purpose, morality, and legacy. At its core, the idea of an eternal soul provides a framework for interpreting human significance, influencing everything from personal ethics to collective ideologies. Conversely, dismissing the soul as an illusion shifts focus toward tangible, immediate concerns, reshaping priorities and aspirations in equally transformative ways. For those who embrace the notion of an eternal soul, life takes on a transcendent dimension. Actions become imbued with cosmic importance, as they are believed to carry consequences beyond the grave. In religious contexts, this belief fosters a sense of accountability, encouraging adherents to align their behavior with divine expectations. Christians, for instance, may strive to live virtuously in anticipation of heavenly reward or to avoid eternal damnation. Similarly, Hindus motivated by the prospect of moksha dedicate themselves to ethical conduct and spiritual growth, viewing each lifetime as an opportunity to progress toward ultimate liberation. Even Buddhists, who reject the idea of a permanent soul, find motivation in the karmic ripple effects of their choices, knowing that their actions influence future experiences. This emphasis on eternity profoundly impacts notions of purpose. If the soul persists beyond death, then life acquires a dual mission, fulfilling temporal obligations while preparing for the hereafter. Education, career, relationships, all assume secondary roles compared to the pursuit of salvation, enlightenment, or moral rectitude. Such prioritization can inspire extraordinary acts of altruism, creativity, and devotion. Monks renounce worldly pleasures to attain spiritual purity. Artists channel divine inspiration into masterpieces. Activists fight injustice fueled by visions of heavenly justice. In these cases, belief in the soul amplifies human potential, elevating mundane endeavors to sacred pursuits. However, this same belief can also breed anxiety and dogmatism. Fear of divine punishment or missed opportunities for redemption may paralyze decision-making, stifling spontaneity and joy. Moreover, rigid adherence to prescribed paths risks alienating those whose experiences diverge from doctrinal norms. Women, minorities, and marginalized groups have historically borne the brunt of such exclusions, as patriarchal and hierarchical structures often codify access to salvation. Thus, while the soul offers comfort to many, it simultaneously imposes constraints that can perpetuate inequality and division. Rejecting the soul as an illusion introduces a radically different paradigm. Without the promise or threat of an afterlife, attention turns inward and outward simultaneously. Internally, individuals confront the raw, unfiltered reality of finitude. Every moment becomes precious, every choice irrevocable. This heightened awareness can foster mindfulness, gratitude, and authenticity, prompting people to live more fully in the present. Externally, the absence of an eternal arbiter shifts moral authority from supernatural entities to human consensus. Ethics evolve based on empirical evidence and social agreements, prioritizing outcomes over intentions. Secular humanism exemplifies this approach, advocating for compassion, reason, and cooperation as guiding principles. Yet, abandoning the soul also raises existential dilemmas. If nothing endures beyond death, what prevents nihilism from creeping in? Without a higher power or eternal destination, why bother striving for excellence, kindness, or justice? Philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche grappled with these questions, arguing that the death of God necessitated the creation of new values grounded in willpower and affirmation. Modern existentialists echo this sentiment, urging individuals to craft meaning despite, or because of, life's inherent absurdity. Art, science, activism, and love emerge as vehicles for transcendence, enabling humans to rise above despair and forge connections across generations. At a societal level, skepticism about the soul challenges institutions built on metaphysical assumptions. Religious organizations face declining membership as agnosticism and atheism gain traction. Legal systems rooted in divine commandments adapt to secular principles, emphasizing human rights and rational governance. Education shifts focus from indoctrination to critical thinking, empowering students to question inherited beliefs and forge their own paths. These transformations reflect broader cultural trends toward pluralism and autonomy, celebrating diversity over uniformity. Ultimately, whether one affirms or denies the soul's existence, the implications reverberate deeply. Belief in an eternal essence anchors identity, morality, and hope in something greater than oneself, providing solace amidst uncertainty. Rejecting the soul demands courage and creativity, compelling individuals to build meaning within the confines of mortality. Both perspectives enrich the tapestry of human experience, reminding us that the search for truth is itself a testament to our boundless curiosity and resilience. If the soul's journey remains uncertain, could science offer clues instead? Perhaps neuroscience holds some surprising insights. As we ponder the mysteries of the soul, it becomes clear that its definition eludes easy categorization. Is it an eternal spark animating our bodies, or a mirage conjured by our minds? While ancient wisdom and modern philosophy provide invaluable perspectives, science invites us to probe deeper, using tools and techniques honed over centuries of inquiry. Could the workings of the brain reveal traces of immortality, or confirm the finality of death? Join me now as we venture into the realm of neuroscience, where cutting-edge research seeks to illuminate the boundaries and possibilities of human consciousness. Neuroscience meets mortality, consciousness after death. The intersection of neuroscience and mortality represents one of the most intriguing frontiers in our quest to understand what happens after we die. At its heart lies the enigma of consciousness, that ineffable quality of awareness, thought, and selfhood that defines our existence. For centuries, philosophers and theologians have speculated about whether consciousness survives death or vanishes alongside the physical body. In recent decades, advances in neuroscience have brought this age-old question into sharper focus, offering tantalizing glimpses into the workings of the brain during life's final moments, and sometimes beyond. One of the most compelling phenomena studied in this context is near-death experiences, NDEs. These extraordinary episodes occur when individuals are clinically dead or on the brink of death yet report vivid sensations upon resuscitation. Common features include feelings of detachment from the body, floating above the scene, moving through tunnels toward bright lights, encountering deceased loved ones, and experiencing overwhelming emotions such as peace, love, or fear. While skeptics dismiss NDEs as hallucinations triggered by oxygen deprivation, trauma, or medication, others argue that their consistency across cultures and demographics suggests something deeper at play. Take, for example, the case of Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon who spent 7 days in a coma caused by bacterial meningitis. During this time, he claimed to have journeyed to an otherworldly realm filled with indescribable beauty and profound insights. Upon recovery, Alexander wrote extensively about his experience, arguing that it challenged prevailing materialist views of consciousness. Critics countered that his account could be explained by residual neural activity within the damaged brain. Nevertheless, stories like his fuel ongoing debates about whether NDEs hint at an afterlife or merely reflect the brain's desperate attempts to make sense of dying. Scientific studies on brain activity during death further complicate the picture. Researchers have observed intriguing patterns in patients transitioning from life to death. For instance, a 2023 study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience documented gamma wave surges, a type of high-frequency electrical activity associated with heightened awareness, occurring shortly after cardiac arrest in some subjects. This finding raises provocative questions. Could these bursts signify a final moment of lucidity? Or do they represent the biological equivalent of a computer shutting down, generating random signals before ceasing operation entirely? Anecdotal evidence adds another layer of complexity. Emergency room doctors and nurses frequently recount witnessing inexplicable phenomena surrounding the deaths of patients. Some describe hearing disembodied voices or seeing shadowy figures hovering near bedsides, while others report devices malfunctioning inexplicably during critical moments. Such accounts blur the line between objective observation and subjective interpretation, leaving open the possibility that consciousness, or at least its remnants, might linger briefly after bodily functions cease. Debates rage over whether consciousness arises solely from neural processes or possesses qualities that transcend biology. Materialists maintain that the mind is entirely dependent on the brain, likening it to software running on hardware. When the hardware fails, so too does the software. This perspective aligns neatly with observable facts. Damage to specific brain regions correlates with predictable cognitive deficits, suggesting a direct link between neural architecture and mental function. Dualists, however, challenge this reductionist view, proposing instead that consciousness exists independently of the body. They point to anomalies such as NDEs, past life memories in young children, and purported instances of reincarnation as evidence supporting their stance. Proponents of panpsychism take an even broader approach, positing that all matter possesses some degree of consciousness. From this vantage point, human awareness emerges not because the brain generates it, but because it organizes pre-existing conscious elements into a coherent whole. Experiments designed to test these hypotheses remain inconclusive but fascinating. For example, researchers at institutions like the University of Southampton and New York University have conducted large-scale investigations into NDEs, using rigorous methodologies to separate verifiable occurrences from subjective interpretations. Their findings suggest that certain aspects of NDEs cannot be fully accounted for by known physiological mechanisms, though alternative explanations continue to emerge. Meanwhile, quantum physicists speculate about the potential role of non-locality, the idea that particles can influence each other instantaneously regardless of distance, in explaining consciousness. If true, this theory would revolutionize our understanding of both life and death, suggesting that awareness might operate outside conventional spacetime constraints. Amidst these competing claims, one thing remains clear: the relationship between consciousness and mortality defies easy categorization. Whether viewed through the lens of science, philosophy, or spirituality, the question of what happens to consciousness after death continues to elude definitive answers. Yet, the pursuit itself enriches our appreciation for the intricate interplay between mind, body, and cosmos. The implications of exploring consciousness after death extend far beyond academic curiosity. They strike at the very core of how we perceive ourselves and our place in the universe. If consciousness arises solely from neural processes, then death marks an absolute end, a cessation of all subjective experience. However, if consciousness possesses qualities that transcend biology, then the boundaries of life and death become far more fluid, opening doors to possibilities once relegated to the realm of myth and metaphor. For materialists, the notion that consciousness ends with the body carries both liberating and sobering implications. On one hand, it underscores the urgency of living fully in the present moment. Without the promise or threat of an afterlife, every choice becomes imbued with heightened significance. Relationships deepen, passions intensify, and ethical decisions gain immediacy. On the other hand, the absence of continuity can evoke existential dread, prompting questions about whether anything truly matters if all traces vanish without a trace. This tension mirrors broader societal trends, where secular worldviews increasingly emphasize tangible achievements over metaphysical aspirations. Yet, even within materialist frameworks, cracks appear. The persistence of NDE reports, coupled with anomalous findings in neuroscience, challenges simplistic notions of consciousness as purely biological. Consider the phenomenon of terminal lucidity, wherein terminally ill patients suddenly regain clarity and coherence shortly before passing away. Documented cases span centuries, involving individuals suffering from dementia, strokes, and other debilitating conditions. How can severely damaged brains produce such lucid episodes unless consciousness operates according to principles we barely comprehend? Such anomalies invite us to reconsider whether materialism provides a complete explanation or merely scratches the surface of a far more complex reality. Dualist perspectives offer alternative interpretations, reframing death as a transition rather than an endpoint. By positing that consciousness exists independently of the body, dualists propose that awareness continues in some form after physical demise. This belief resonates deeply with many people, providing comfort amidst uncertainty. It also aligns with anecdotal evidence suggesting interactions between the living and the deceased. Mediumship, channeling, and apparitional encounters abound in folklore and contemporary accounts, often dismissed as superstition or coincidence. But what if these phenomena hint at undiscovered dimensions of reality? What if consciousness, freed from its corporeal confines, retains agency and influence? Panpsychism takes this line of reasoning even further, implying that consciousness pervades all matter. From this viewpoint, death represents not annihilation but transformation, a shift from localized awareness to universal participation. Imagine your thoughts, memories, and emotions dispersing like ripples across a cosmic pond, contributing to the collective consciousness of the universe. While speculative, this hypothesis resonates with ancient spiritual traditions emphasizing interconnectedness and unity. Modern physics, particularly quantum mechanics, lends credence to such ideas, revealing a fundamentally interconnected cosmos where distinctions between observer and observed blur. These diverse perspectives raise profound questions about the nature of subjective experience. If consciousness extends beyond individual lifetimes, what constitutes identity? Are you the same person today as you were yesterday, or will be tomorrow? How do personal narratives persist, or dissolve, across transitions? Philosophers grapple with these issues, drawing distinctions between continuity of memory, personality, and essence. Neuroscientists investigate how neural networks encode and retrieve information, seeking clues about the mechanisms underlying selfhood. Together, they highlight the fragility and resilience of human identity, reminding us that who we are remains as elusive as what happens next. Ethical considerations also come into play. Beliefs about consciousness after death shape attitudes toward end-of-life care, grief, and legacy building. Those who envision eternal continuation may prioritize spiritual preparation over practical arrangements, focusing on moral purity or karmic balance. Conversely, those embracing finitude may emphasize tangible contributions, ensuring their impact endures through children, art, or philanthropy. Legal systems reflect similar tensions, balancing religious freedoms with secular imperatives in areas like euthanasia, organ donation, and estate planning. Even language betrays underlying assumptions. Phrases like "rest in peace" assume restfulness, while "gone forever" conveys finality. Ultimately, the debate over consciousness after death transcends intellectual discourse, touching the deepest recesses of human emotion. Fear, hope, longing, and wonder converge in this liminal space, driving us to seek answers despite, or perhaps because of, their elusiveness. Science offers tools for investigation, philosophy provides frameworks for reflection, and spirituality furnishes solace amidst ambiguity. Each contributes uniquely to our evolving understanding of mortality, reminding us that the journey toward truth is as meaningful as the destination itself. While science probes the boundaries of life and death, philosophy invites us to ponder something even stranger. Could reality itself be an illusion? As we contemplate the mysteries of consciousness after death, we find ourselves drawn into ever deeper layers of inquiry. Is the fabric of reality as solid and reliable as it seems, or could it be a construct of perception, shaped by forces beyond our comprehension? Join me now as we step into the realm of metaphysics, where the very nature of existence comes under scrutiny. From Descartes' cogito ergo sum to modern simulations theories, let us explore the unsettling possibility that what we call reality may be far less stable and far more malleable than we dare imagine. The simulation hypothesis. Are we already dead? The simulation hypothesis, a provocative and mind-bending proposition, suggests that our reality, everything we perceive, experience, and believe, is not fundamentally real but instead an intricately designed construct, akin to a hyper-advanced computer simulation. This idea has gained traction in both philosophical and scientific circles, challenging conventional notions of existence and mortality. At its core lies Nick Bostrom's simulation argument, which posits three possibilities about the nature of reality, one of which implies that we are almost certainly living in a simulated universe. Nick Bostrom, a philosopher at the University of Oxford, first articulated his simulation argument in 2003. The crux of his reasoning is as follows. If it is possible for a technologically advanced civilization to create simulations indistinguishable from reality, and if such civilizations choose to run a vast number of these simulations, then statistically speaking, we are far more likely to exist within one of those simulations than in a base reality. To break this down further, Bostrom presents three mutually exclusive propositions. Almost all civilizations capable of creating realistic simulations become extinct before reaching that technological capability. Even if they reach the ability to create such simulations, these civilizations have no interest in doing so. We are almost certainly living in a simulation because the number of simulated realities would vastly outnumber the single base reality. If the third proposition holds true, then everything we know, the stars above us, the ground beneath our feet, even our own thoughts and emotions, could be artificial constructs generated by some higher intelligence. This notion resonates eerily with religious and mythological narratives about divine creators who shape worlds, govern destinies, and determine fates. In fact, parallels between the simulation hypothesis and traditional beliefs about an afterlife controlled by higher powers are striking. Consider how many religions envision life as a precursor to another realm orchestrated by gods or cosmic forces. Christianity, for example, teaches that humans live under God's watchful eye, preparing their souls for eternal judgment. Similarly, Hinduism describes samsara, the cycle of rebirth governed by karma, overseen by deities who maintain cosmic order. Buddhism, though non-theistic, still frames existence as part of a grand design influenced by karmic laws. These doctrines share a common thread. Humanity exists within a framework established and maintained by entities beyond our comprehension. In contrast, the simulation hypothesis replaces deities with post-human beings, future versions of ourselves who possess unimaginable computational power. Just as gods and religious traditions dictate the rules of existence, these hypothetical simulators could program the parameters of our world, determining physical laws, historical events, and perhaps even individual fates. Death, too, takes on new meaning in this context. Instead of transitioning to an afterlife dictated by divine will, death might simply represent exiting the simulation, or being deleted from it entirely. Bostrom's theory invites us to reimagine mortality not as a biological inevitability but as a feature programmed into the simulation. If consciousness arises from code rather than biology, then dying could mean anything from logging out of the system to transferring data to another server. Alternatively, death might serve as a narrative device embedded in the simulation to provide structure and purpose to participants' experiences. From this perspective, death becomes less an existential end and more a mechanism designed to elicit specific emotional responses or fulfill certain roles within the simulated environment. Religious interpretations often frame death as a gateway to another dimension where justice prevails, love endures, and suffering finds resolution. The simulation hypothesis offers a secular counterpart to this vision, suggesting that what awaits us after death may depend on the intentions and ethics of whoever, or whatever, designed the simulation. Are we pawns in a cosmic experiment, characters in an elaborate game, or test subjects in a study of morality and free will? Each possibility carries profound implications for how we understand the human condition and our place within the larger scheme of things. Moreover, the simulation hypothesis raises unsettling questions about authenticity. If every aspect of our lives is preordained by external programmers, do concepts like freedom, creativity, and self-determination hold any weight? Or are we merely executing scripts written long ago by superior intelligences? Such musings blur the line between determinism and agency, forcing us to reconsider the very foundations of identity and autonomy. By framing existence as potentially synthetic, the simulation hypothesis opens up dizzying vistas of speculation. It invites comparisons to works of fiction like The Matrix, where characters awaken to discover their perceived reality is a facade. Yet unlike science fiction, which thrives on escapism, the simulation argument demands rigorous intellectual engagement. Its implications extend far beyond idle curiosity, challenging us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of consciousness, mortality, and ultimate meaning. The simulation hypothesis forces us to grapple with profound paradoxes that challenge the essence of what it means to be human. If our reality is indeed a meticulously crafted illusion, then discovering this truth would profoundly alter how we view death and life itself. Would such knowledge liberate us from fear and uncertainty, or would it render existence devoid of significance? The answers to these questions hinge on how we interpret the implications of living in a simulated world. One immediate consequence of accepting the simulation hypothesis is the destabilization of fundamental assumptions about authenticity. Our sense of self, grounded in memories, choices, and relationships, rests on the belief that these elements arise organically from lived experience. But if everything, from personal histories to global events, is artificially generated, then what remains of individuality? Are we truly unique beings, or mere avatars programmed to perform predetermined roles? This erosion of ontological certainty can evoke feelings of alienation, as the boundaries between self and simulation dissolve into ambiguity. For some, however, the prospect of living in a simulation brings unexpected solace. Death, often viewed as the ultimate unknown, loses much of its terror when reframed as a technical process rather than a metaphysical mystery. If dying simply means exiting the simulation, or transferring to another level of existence, then mortality ceases to be an existential abyss. Instead, it becomes a transition point, akin to changing channels or upgrading software. For individuals burdened by grief or anxiety about the afterlife, this perspective offers a pragmatic alternative to traditional spiritual beliefs. Yet, the simulation hypothesis also introduces ethical dilemmas that complicate its appeal. If our actions are scripted by unseen designers, does morality retain any meaning? Concepts like virtue, sin, and accountability presuppose agency, the ability to make genuine choices. Without autonomy, moral frameworks crumble, leaving behind hollow rituals devoid of substance. Imagine committing acts of kindness or cruelty only to realize later that your behavior was pre-programmed, lacking any authentic intent. Such revelations risk undermining trust in interpersonal relationships and societal institutions alike. Another paradox arises when considering the nature of consciousness within a simulated reality. If awareness emerges from code rather than biology, then what distinguishes sentience from simulation? Could artificial intelligences develop subjective experiences indistinguishable from ours? And if so, would they deserve the same rights and considerations granted to humans? These questions push the boundaries of philosophy, neuroscience, and ethics, blurring distinctions once thought immutable. They also raise the tantalizing possibility that other simulated beings coexist alongside us, sharing our digital domain yet operating under different parameters. Perhaps most intriguingly, the simulation hypothesis invites reflection on the motivations of its architects. Why would a post-human civilization invest resources into creating virtual worlds populated by sentient beings? Possible explanations range from benign curiosity to malevolent exploitation. Some theorists speculate that simulations serve educational purposes, allowing creators to study history, sociology, or psychology in controlled environments. Others propose darker scenarios, imagining sadistic overlords deriving amusement from observing our struggles and suffering. Whatever the rationale, the act of designing a simulated universe implies a degree of detachment, reducing participants to objects of experimentation or entertainment. This dynamic recalls ancient myths about capricious gods manipulating mortals for sport or enlightenment. Greek legends abound with tales of Zeus, Poseidon, and Athena interfering in human affairs, shaping destinies according to whimsical desires. Modern iterations of this trope appear in literature and film, where omnipotent beings orchestrate events for reasons opaque to their creations. By drawing parallels between divine intervention and simulated programming, the hypothesis underscores humanity's enduring fascination with hierarchical power structures and the limits of comprehension. Ultimately, whether the simulation hypothesis proves true or false, its exploration yields invaluable insights into the human psyche. Contemplating the possibility of artificial existence sharpens our appreciation for imperfection, unpredictability, and spontaneity, qualities that define organic life. It also highlights the resilience of hope, reminding us that even amid uncertainty, we find ways to craft meaning and forge connections. Whether navigating a simulated cosmos or confronting raw mortality, the quest for understanding remains a testament to our boundless curiosity and courage. If we're trapped in a simulation, then perhaps time itself isn't what it seems. Let's dive deeper into the mysteries of eternity. As we wrestle with the implications of living in a simulated reality, we encounter yet another layer of complexity: the nature of time. If our universe operates as a constructed system, then temporal progression, our perception of past, present, and future, may function differently than assumed. Could time loop endlessly, stretch infinitely, or collapse into singular moments? Join me now as we explore these enigmatic dimensions, probing the fluid boundaries between linear chronology, cyclical recurrence, and timeless infinity. Together, we will unravel the threads of eternity, seeking patterns and paradoxes that illuminate the fabric of existence. Eternal recurrence, living forever, over and over. Few philosophical ideas are as simultaneously captivating and unsettling as Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence. At its heart lies a deceptively simple yet profoundly disorienting proposition. What if every moment of your life, every triumph, failure, joy, and sorrow, is destined to repeat endlessly in an infinite loop? This notion, often referred to as eternal recurrence or the eternal return, challenges us to confront not only the nature of existence but also the weight of our choices and actions. It forces us to ask, how would you live differently if you knew that everything you do will happen again and again, for eternity? Nietzsche first introduced this idea in his seminal work The Gay Science and expanded upon it in Thus Spoke Zarathustra. He framed it as a thought experiment, inviting readers to imagine a demon whispering in their ear, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more." The central question becomes whether you would embrace this prospect with gratitude, or recoil from it in despair. For Nietzsche, the eternal recurrence was not merely a speculative exercise. It was a litmus test for authenticity. To affirm eternal recurrence, he argued, is to wholeheartedly accept one's life as worth living, an act of supreme affirmation and self-overcoming. The roots of Nietzsche's idea can be traced back to ancient philosophies and cosmological theories. Early Greek thinkers like Heraclitus posited that the universe operates in cycles, with fire serving as the primordial element that periodically consumes and recreates all things. Similarly, Stoicism embraced the notion of a cosmic cycle, where the universe undergoes endless destructions and rebirths. These ideas resonated with Nietzsche, who sought to strip away religious dogma and metaphysical abstractions in favor of a radical reimagining of human purpose. By recasting eternal recurrence as a personal challenge rather than a divine decree, he shifted the focus from external fate to internal resolve. Modern interpretations of eternal recurrence extend beyond philosophy into the realm of physics, particularly through theories of cyclic universes. In contemporary cosmology, the Big Bang theory remains the dominant explanation for the origin of the universe. However, some physicists propose alternative models suggesting that the cosmos does not follow a linear trajectory but instead oscillates between expansion and contraction. Known as cyclic or oscillatory models, these hypotheses envision a universe that continually collapses, a big crunch, before rebounding into another Big Bang. Each cycle erases traces of the previous iteration, creating a perpetually renewing cosmos. One notable proponent of such ideas is physicist Paul Steinhardt, who co-developed the ekpyrotic model alongside Neil Turok. According to this framework, our universe exists within a higher dimensional space called the bulk, where two parallel branes collide periodically, triggering new cycles of creation. While still speculative, these theories align intriguingly with Nietzsche's vision of eternal recurrence, albeit on a grander scale. If the universe itself loops infinitely, then perhaps individual lives, or at least patterns of existence, could echo across time as well. Quantum mechanics offers another intriguing angle. Some interpretations of quantum theory suggest that particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed, raising questions about whether alternate realities branch off at each decision point. If true, could these branches eventually reconnect, forming closed loops akin to Nietzsche's recurring moments? Though speculative, such possibilities blur the line between scientific inquiry and philosophical musing, hinting at a deeper interconnectedness underlying reality. Religious traditions, too, echo aspects of eternal recurrence, albeit filtered through spiritual lenses. Hinduism and Buddhism describe samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth driven by karma. Liberation from this cycle, whether through moksha or nirvana, represents the ultimate goal, implying that repetition without transcendence leads to suffering. Yet, unlike Nietzsche's call to embrace recurrence, these traditions emphasize breaking free from the wheel of existence. Nevertheless, the shared recognition of cyclical patterns underscores humanity's enduring fascination with infinity and renewal. By weaving together ancient wisdom, modern science, and existential philosophy, the concept of eternal recurrence emerges as a rich tapestry of meaning. Whether viewed as a cosmic mechanism, a psychological tool, or a moral imperative, it invites us to reflect deeply on the significance of our fleeting moments and their potential echoes across eternity. The implications of eternal recurrence ripple outward, touching nearly every facet of human experience. Knowing that one's life loops endlessly carries profound psychological weight, shaping emotions, decisions, and worldviews in ways both subtle and seismic. Would such knowledge inspire gratitude, filling each moment with heightened appreciation? Or would it evoke existential dread, casting shadows over even the brightest achievements? The answer depends largely on how individuals interpret and internalize the idea, a process fraught with complexity and contradiction. For those inclined toward optimism, eternal recurrence might serve as a catalyst for profound contentment. Imagine waking each morning aware that today is not just another day but a timeless iteration of countless identical mornings. Every sunrise, every conversation, every breath becomes imbued with sacred significance, knowing they will recur forever. This perspective fosters mindfulness, urging people to cherish small joys and savor fleeting pleasures. Mundane tasks transform into rituals, ordinary encounters take on extraordinary weight. Life ceases to feel ephemeral and instead radiates permanence, offering solace amidst impermanence. Moreover, the prospect of eternal recurrence encourages accountability. If every action reverberates infinitely, then ethical behavior assumes paramount importance. Choices made in haste or selfishness lose their triviality, replaced by a sobering awareness of their enduring impact. This mindset aligns closely with Nietzsche's vision of eternal recurrence as a call to authenticity. To affirm one's life fully, to say yes to every moment, is to live deliberately, embracing responsibility for both triumphs and failures. Such an outlook cultivates resilience, enabling individuals to face adversity with courage and grace. Yet, for others, the thought of endless repetition may induce paralyzing anxiety. Consider the darker corners of existence: grief, regret, trauma. What happens when these burdens replay ad infinitum, refusing release or resolution. Eternal recurrence strips away the comfort of finality, leaving wounds unhealed and mistakes unredeemed. Instead of liberation, it imposes a crushing sense of futility. Why strive for improvement if progress resets endlessly? Why build relationships if separation awaits repeatedly? Questions like these gnaw at the psyche, threatening to unravel the fabric of hope and purpose. Existential dread deepens when contemplating the sheer magnitude of infinity. Human minds struggle to comprehend vast timescales, let alone eternity. The prospect of reliving every detail, no matter how insignificant, stretches imagination to its limits. Repetition amplifies monotony, turning novelty into routine and wonder into weariness. Even cherished memories risk losing luster under relentless duplication. For sensitive souls, this realization threatens madness, blurring distinctions between past and present, self and other. Cultural narratives reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature, film, and art frequently explore themes of cyclical existence, probing its dual nature. Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude, for example, depicts generations bound by repetitive patterns, highlighting both the beauty and tragedy of inheritance. Movies like Groundhog Day playfully examine the absurdity of eternal recurrence, blending humor with poignant reflections on growth and redemption. Through such works, creators grapple with universal truths, distilling complex emotions into accessible forms. Scientific parallels further complicate matters. If cyclic universes mirror Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, then humanity occupies a precarious position within a grand design. Our struggles, triumphs, and aspirations become mere threads in an infinite tapestry, woven and rewoven countless times. Such perspectives can either empower or diminish, depending on interpretation. On one hand, recognizing oneself as part of a cosmic rhythm fosters humility and awe. On the other, it risks reducing individual agency to insignificance, rendering efforts futile against overwhelming forces. Ethical considerations also come into play. Beliefs about eternal recurrence shape attitudes toward morality, legacy, and justice. Those who embrace recurrence prioritize integrity, viewing actions as eternally consequential. Conversely, skeptics argue that infinite repetition undermines accountability, absolving wrongdoers through inevitable reset. Legal systems reflect similar debates, balancing determinism with free will in areas like punishment, rehabilitation, and forgiveness. Language itself reveals biases, framing eternity alternately as blessing or curse. Ultimately, the psychological impact of eternal recurrence defies easy categorization. Its influence varies widely, shaped by temperament, upbringing, and circumstance. For some, it inspires gratitude and resolve. For others, it evokes despair and resignation. Either way, the idea leaves indelible marks, prompting introspection and transformation. It reminds us that life's meaning resides not in outcomes but in how we navigate uncertainty, crafting narratives that resonate despite, or because of, their fragility. Eternity may feel infinite, but what about oblivion? For some, non-existence offers its own kind of peace, or terror. As we contemplate the endless loops of eternal recurrence, we encounter a stark counterpoint, the possibility of non-existence. Where recurrence promises continuity, oblivion whispers finality, a cessation so absolute that even memory fades. Join me now as we delve into the abyss of nothingness, exploring the paradoxes of absence and the quiet allure of rest. Together, we will weigh the comforts and terrors of oblivion, seeking clarity amidst the silence. Oblivion, the final rest. Death, as viewed through atheistic and agnostic lenses, is often seen not as a gateway to another realm but as the definitive cessation of consciousness, a return to the void from which we emerged. This perspective, though stark in its simplicity, carries profound implications for how we understand existence, mortality, and the human condition. For atheists, death represents the ultimate end. No soul persists, no afterlife awaits, and all that remains is the material legacy we leave behind, our impact on others, the artifacts of our lives, and perhaps the faint echoes of our actions rippling through time. Agnostics, while more cautious in their assertions, similarly grapple with the possibility that oblivion may be the final chapter, acknowledging the limits of human knowledge while resisting the allure of comforting metaphysical certainties. The idea of oblivion as the end of consciousness raises fundamental questions about the nature of non-existence. How do we conceptualize something so devoid of form, sensation, or awareness? Non-existence defies description because it is, by definition, the absence of everything we know and experience. Yet humans, wired to seek patterns and meaning, struggle to comprehend this void. We instinctively project ourselves into the future, imagining scenarios where we continue to exist, even if only in memory or influence. Oblivion disrupts this projection, forcing us to confront an endpoint that offers neither continuation nor resolution. Philosophers have long wrestled with the paradoxes of non-existence. Epicurus, an ancient Greek thinker, argued that fearing death was irrational because once it arrives, we are no longer present to experience it. "Death does not concern us," he famously wrote, "because as long as we exist, death is not here. And when it does come, we no longer exist." This Stoic logic provides cold comfort to many, however, as it sidesteps the emotional weight of loss and separation. Modern existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus echoed similar sentiments, emphasizing humanity's freedom and burden to create meaning in a universe indifferent to our presence. For them, the inevitability of oblivion underscores the urgency of living authentically, embracing life's fleeting beauty without clinging to illusions of permanence. Agnosticism introduces a layer of humility into these discussions, acknowledging the vast unknowns surrounding death. Agnostics often reject dogmatic claims about what happens after we die, whether those claims promise eternal bliss or utter annihilation. Instead, they adopt a posture of open-ended inquiry, recognizing that the answers may lie beyond the reach of human cognition. This stance allows for a kind of intellectual flexibility, enabling individuals to explore diverse perspectives without committing to any single narrative. At the same time, agnosticism can feel unsettling, as it refuses to provide closure or certainty. The ambiguity of "I don't know" leaves room for both hope and despair, depending on one's disposition. Cultural attitudes toward oblivion vary widely, shaped by historical, religious, and philosophical contexts. In some societies, death is embraced as a natural part of the life cycle, with rituals designed to honor the deceased while affirming the continuity of community and tradition. These practices reflect a pragmatic acceptance of mortality, rooted in the belief that individual lives are threads woven into a larger tapestry. Elsewhere, particularly in secularized Western cultures, death often provokes discomfort and denial. The medicalization of dying, coupled with advances in technology, has created a cultural aversion to confronting mortality directly. Death becomes sanitized, hidden away in hospitals and funeral homes, leaving little space for reflection or reconciliation. Despite these variations, the challenge of comprehending non-existence remains universal. Humans are creatures of story, constantly narrating their lives to make sense of chaos and uncertainty. Oblivion disrupts this storytelling impulse, presenting a blank page where there should be chapters yet unwritten. It forces us to reckon with the limits of language, imagination, and perception. How can we describe what cannot be described? How can we imagine what lies beyond imagination? These questions linger at the edges of consciousness, haunting us with their unanswerability. Yet even within the framework of oblivion, subtle nuances emerge. Some interpret non-existence as a form of liberation, a release from suffering, regret, and the burdens of identity. Others see it as a tragic erasure, robbing life of its richness and resonance. These dualities underscore the complexity of grappling with death as the end, inviting us to explore the emotional terrain of extinction in greater depth. The duality of oblivion, its capacity to evoke both peace and terror, lies at the heart of its existential significance. On one hand, the prospect of non-existence offers a profound sense of relief. Freed from the relentless demands of thought, emotion, and responsibility, individuals might find solace in the idea of permanent rest. No more pain, no more longing, no more striving, just silence, stillness, and the gentle dissolution of self. For those weighed down by chronic illness, mental anguish, or existential despair, this vision of oblivion can feel mercifully redemptive. It promises an end to suffering, a sanctuary untouched by the turbulence of life. Consider the metaphor of sleep, a recurring theme in discussions of death. Sleep, especially deep sleep devoid of dreams, serves as a temporary escape from the burdens of wakefulness. Oblivion extends this analogy infinitely, transforming brief respite into eternal repose. Poets and philosophers alike have drawn parallels between death and slumber, using language that evokes tranquility and surrender. Shakespeare's Hamlet muses, "To die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to." Here, death becomes not a foe but a friend, offering deliverance from the trials of existence. However, this comforting portrayal of oblivion coexists uneasily with its darker counterpart, the fear of losing everything that makes life meaningful. Memories, relationships, experiences, all vanish without a trace, swallowed by the abyss. What remains of the person who once laughed, loved, and dreamed? Does identity dissipate entirely, leaving behind nothing but emptiness? Such questions strike at the core of human vulnerability, reminding us how fragile and ephemeral our connections truly are. For many, the thought of erasure inspires visceral dread. Relationships, in particular, occupy a central role in this anxiety. Humans are inherently social beings, defined by their interactions with others. To cease existing means severing these bonds forever, abandoning loved ones to navigate the world alone. Even memories shared with survivors offer limited consolation, as they too will eventually fade into oblivion. Generations pass, stories grow faint, and legacies crumble under the weight of time. This impermanence feels unbearable, a betrayal of the bonds that sustain us. Art and literature frequently channel these conflicting emotions, capturing the tension between liberation and loss. Emily Dickinson's poetry, for instance, oscillates between fascination and fear when contemplating death. In one poem, she describes it as kind, gently guiding her toward eternity. In another, she portrays it as a thief stealing away vitality and purpose. Similarly, visual art often juxtaposes serenity with desolation, depicting death as both a peaceful recluse and a looming specter. These creative expressions reflect the ambivalence inherent in facing oblivion, mirroring the internal struggles of those who dare to look directly into the void. Ethical considerations also arise when contemplating the implications of non-existence. How should we live knowing that everything we cherish will ultimately perish? Some argue that the transient nature of life lends it urgency and poignancy, urging us to savor each moment fully. Others contend that the inevitability of oblivion renders effort futile, prompting nihilistic detachment. Legal systems, too, reflect this tension, balancing individual rights with collective responsibilities in areas like euthanasia, organ donation, and estate planning. Debates over assisted dying, for example, hinge on differing views of whether prolonging life or hastening death aligns better with human dignity and autonomy. Religious traditions, even when rejected intellectually, cast long shadows over secular perspectives on death. Many people raised within faith-based frameworks carry residual hopes, or fears, about an afterlife, complicating their ability to embrace oblivion wholeheartedly. Dreams of reunion with departed loved ones clash with rational acceptance of extinction, creating cognitive dissonance. Conversely, skeptics may cling stubbornly to materialist views, dismissing spiritual possibilities as wishful thinking despite lingering doubts. These psychological crosscurrents reveal the difficulty of untangling belief from biology, culture from conditioning. Ultimately, the implications of oblivion extend far beyond personal introspection, influencing societal norms and values. Cultures that emphasize legacy and remembrance tend to resist the notion of complete erasure, investing heavily in preserving history, art, and tradition. Others prioritize living fully in the present, viewing attachment to permanence as misguided or unhealthy. Both approaches reflect attempts to navigate the paradox of oblivion, finding meaning in the face of meaninglessness, crafting narratives that endure even as individuals fade. Oblivion may seem absolute, but what if death opens doors we cannot yet imagine? Enter the realm of multiverse theories. As we grapple with the stark finality of non-existence, we must also consider the tantalizing possibility that death is not the end, but merely a threshold to new dimensions of reality. Multiverse theories suggest that countless parallel worlds exist alongside our own, each branching off at every decision point, every quantum fluctuation. Could these alternate realities hold versions of ourselves continuing to thrive long after our physical demise? Join me now as we venture into the boundless expanse of the multiverse, exploring infinite possibilities and challenging the very notion of endings. Together, we will unravel the mysteries of existence across countless iterations, seeking glimpses of eternity beyond the confines of singular lifetimes. Multiversal afterlives. Infinite possibilities. The idea of multiversal afterlives emerges from one of the most provocative and mind-bending interpretations of quantum mechanics, the many-worlds interpretation, MWI. Proposed by physicist Hugh Everett III in 1957, this theory posits that every quantum event, every decision, interaction, or random fluctuation results in the branching of reality into multiple parallel universes. In each universe, a different outcome unfolds, creating an infinite array of alternate realities where every possible version of your life exists simultaneously. While MWI was initially conceived as a way to resolve paradoxes in quantum physics, its implications stretch far beyond the laboratory, touching on questions of identity, mortality, and the nature of existence itself. At its core, the many worlds interpretation challenges our conventional understanding of reality. According to classical physics, the world operates deterministically. Given enough information, we could predict the future with certainty. Quantum mechanics, however, introduced uncertainty into the equation, suggesting that particles exist in superpositions, multiple states at once, until observed. The Copenhagen interpretation, the dominant framework for decades, explains this phenomenon through wave function collapse. When measured, a particle chooses one state over others. But Everett rejected this notion, arguing instead that no collapse occurs. Instead, all possible outcomes occur, each in its own separate universe. Imagine flipping a coin. In one universe, it lands heads, in another, tails. Extend this principle to every quantum interaction across the cosmos, and you arrive at Everett's vision, a multiverse teeming with infinite variations of reality. These universes are not distant realms but coexisting layers of existence, branching off continuously like tributaries of an endless river. Each branch represents a distinct timeline, complete with its own version of Earth, history, and inhabitants, including alternate versions of you. What does this mean for personal survival? If every possible outcome plays out somewhere in the multiverse, then death in one universe doesn't preclude life in another. Perhaps when you die in this reality, your consciousness, or something akin to it, continues elsewhere, carried forward by a version of yourself who survived whatever fate befell you here. This raises tantalizing possibilities. Is death merely a transition between branches of the multiverse? Could some form of you persist indefinitely, hopping from one reality to the next? To explore these ideas further, consider how consciousness might function within such a framework. Philosophers and scientists alike have speculated about whether awareness could transcend individual lifetimes, leaping across dimensions like a thread weaving through fabric. Some theorists propose that consciousness isn't tied exclusively to a single body or brain, but exists as a kind of informational pattern replicable across universes. If so, then dying in one reality might simply shift focus to another, allowing continuity without violating the laws of physics. This concept resonates intriguingly with spiritual traditions that envision reincarnation or eternal souls. Hinduism and Buddhism describe samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, governed by karma. While rooted in metaphysical principles rather than scientific ones, these doctrines share common ground with MWI. Both suggest that existence extends beyond singular lifetimes, unfolding across vast temporal and spatial scales. Similarly, Christian notions of heaven and hell can be reimagined through the lens of multiverses, with different outcomes corresponding to various paths taken during life. Modern pop culture has embraced these ideas enthusiastically, offering vivid portrayals of multiversal narratives. Movies like Everything Everywhere All at Once and TV shows like Rick and Morty delve into the chaos and wonder of infinite realities, exploring themes of identity, choice, and consequence. These works highlight the inherent strangeness of living in a multiverse, where familiar faces wear unfamiliar masks and actions ripple unpredictably across timelines. They also underscore humanity's fascination with alternate selves, inviting audiences to ponder what their lives might look like under slightly, or drastically, different circumstances. Yet, despite its allure, the many worlds interpretation remains speculative. Critics argue that it lacks empirical evidence and risks multiplying unnecessary complexity. After all, why posit infinite universes when simpler explanations suffice? Proponents counter that MWI resolves inconsistencies within quantum mechanics while aligning elegantly with mathematical models. Regardless of its veracity, the theory serves as a powerful thought experiment, challenging us to rethink fundamental assumptions about life, death, and legacy. By merging science fiction with cutting-edge physics, the concept of multiversal afterlives invites us to imagine existence as a sprawling tapestry woven from countless threads. Each thread represents a unique story, unfolding independently yet interconnectedly. Together, they form a grand mosaic of possibility, stretching infinitely in every direction. Within this framework, death loses some of its finality, replaced by the promise of continuation, not necessarily in this universe, but perhaps in another. The implications of multiversal afterlives are as profound as they are perplexing. If alternate versions of ourselves continue to exist across infinite dimensions, what would it mean to encounter them? Would such meetings bring comfort, confusion, or something altogether unforeseen? To grapple with these questions is to confront the very essence of identity, memory, and connection. On the surface, the prospect of meeting alternate selves seems inherently comforting. Imagine encountering a version of yourself who made different choices, perhaps pursuing a dream deferred, avoiding a tragic mistake, or forging deeper bonds with loved ones. Such encounters could offer closure, redemption, or inspiration, providing glimpses of lives lived differently. For those burdened by regret or longing, these alternate realities might serve as reminders of untapped potential, reinforcing the belief that better outcomes are always possible. Consider the emotional impact of witnessing a happier, more fulfilled version of yourself. It could inspire hope, motivating you to strive for similar fulfillment in your current reality. Alternatively, it might evoke envy or resentment, highlighting the gap between what is and what could have been. Either way, the experience would force a reckoning with personal agency, prompting reflection on how decisions shape destiny. Would you feel empowered by the knowledge that countless paths remain open, or paralyzed by the weight of infinite choices? Conversely, encountering less fortunate versions of yourself might provoke entirely different emotions. Picture meeting someone trapped in circumstances far worse than your own: poverty, illness, isolation. Such encounters could foster gratitude, reminding you of privileges often taken for granted. At the same time, they might stir guilt or helplessness, especially if you recognize opportunities missed to alleviate suffering. These interactions blur the line between empathy and self-recrimination, complicating efforts to reconcile compassion with contentment. More unsettling still is the possibility of encountering radically altered selves, versions so divergent as to feel almost alien. What happens when you meet someone who shares your DNA but little else? A tyrant, perhaps, ruling ruthlessly over their domain. Or a recluse, shunning society entirely. These extremes challenge notions of identity, raising doubts about whether shared genetics or origins truly define who we are. Are we bound together by biology, or do experiences carve us into fundamentally separate beings? Philosophical debates surrounding personal identity intensify in a multiverse context. If countless versions of you exist simultaneously, which one, if any, is the real you? Traditional views of selfhood rely on continuity. Memories, personality traits, and bodily integrity provide anchors tying us to specific identities. But in a multiverse, these anchors dissolve, replaced by fragmented reflections scattered across timelines. One version remembers childhood vividly, another retains only fragments. One excels creatively, another struggles with basic tasks. Which iteration deserves primacy, and why? Such fragmentation undermines traditional notions of authenticity, forcing us to reconsider what makes life meaningful. If every choice spawns new realities, does free will retain significance? Or does the sheer multiplicity of options render individual decisions trivial? Ethical dilemmas arise as well. Should you prioritize improving your current reality, knowing countless others persist unaffected? Or should you focus on fostering connections across dimensions, striving for collective progress? These questions defy easy answers, underscoring the moral ambiguity inherent in navigating a multiverse. Cultural narratives reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature and film frequently explore themes of duality and divergence, probing the psychological toll of confronting alternate selves. Works like Sliding Doors and Dark depict characters grappling with fractured identities, torn between loyalty to their original selves and curiosity about alternate paths. Through such stories, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with protagonists caught between worlds. Scientific parallels further complicate matters. If consciousness transcends individual lifetimes, hopping from one reality to the next, then what constitutes death? Is it merely a shift in perspective, akin to changing channels? Or does each version of you possess independent awareness, rendering transitions meaningless? These uncertainties blur the boundaries between life and non-existence, challenging us to redefine mortality in light of infinite possibility. Ultimately, the implications of multiversal afterlives hinge largely on interpretation. For optimists, the multiverse offers solace, affirming that even in death, some form of continuation persists. For skeptics, it evokes unease, highlighting the fragility of identity amid infinite variation. Either way, the concept leaves indelible marks, reshaping how we view ourselves, others, and the cosmos. Alternate realities sound fantastical, but let's return to Earth for a moment. Could technology extend life indefinitely? As we marvel at the infinite possibilities of the multiverse, we must also turn our gaze inward, toward the tangible advancements shaping our present reality. While alternate dimensions captivate the imagination, groundbreaking innovations in biotechnology and artificial intelligence promise to transform how we approach mortality right here on Earth. From mind-uploading technologies to genetic engineering, science inches closer to extending human lifespan, or even achieving immortality. Join me now as we explore these frontiers, examining how technological progress challenges age-old notions of life, death, and legacy. Together, we will weigh the promises and perils of digital eternity, seeking clarity amidst the convergence of science and speculation. Digital immortality, uploading our minds. The concept of digital immortality, uploading our minds into machines or virtual environments, represents one of the most audacious and polarizing visions of humanity's future. Rooted in transhumanist philosophy, this idea envisions a world where death is no longer inevitable, replaced instead by the ability to preserve consciousness indefinitely through advanced technology. At its core lies the premise that human identity can be reduced to data. Memories, thoughts, emotions, and personality traits encoded as patterns of information capable of being transferred, stored, and replicated. While still speculative, rapid advancements in neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and computational power have brought us closer than ever to making this vision a reality, or at least raising serious questions about its feasibility and ethics. Transhumanism, the philosophical movement driving much of the discourse around mind uploading, advocates for using technology to transcend biological limitations. Its proponents argue that humanity stands on the cusp of a new evolutionary phase, one in which we shed the vulnerabilities of flesh and blood for the durability of silicon and code. By merging biology with machines, they claim, we can achieve unprecedented levels of intelligence, longevity, and even immortality. Central to this vision is the notion of substrate independence, the belief that consciousness does not depend on the specific material substrate, e.g., neurons, but rather on the informational processes those substrates support. If true, then transferring these processes to a non-biological medium, such as a computer or quantum system, could theoretically allow us to continue existing beyond the lifespan of our physical bodies. Mind-uploading technologies take various forms, ranging from incremental approaches like brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, to more radical proposals involving whole-brain emulation. BCIs, already in development today, aim to create seamless connections between human brains and external devices, enabling direct communication between thought and machine. Companies like Neuralink, founded by Elon Musk, are working on implantable chips designed to enhance cognitive abilities, restore lost functions, and potentially lay the groundwork for full-scale mind uploads. Whole brain emulation, on the other hand, seeks to replicate an individual's entire neural architecture within a digital framework. This would involve mapping every neuron and synapse in the brain, a task so complex it currently exceeds our technological capabilities, but researchers believe it may become achievable with exponential growth in computing power over the coming decades. Ethical concerns surrounding digital immortality abound, challenging both the practicality and morality of such endeavors. One major issue revolves around consent and autonomy. Would individuals willingly choose to upload their minds, or might societal pressures coerce them into doing so? In a world increasingly dominated by technological imperatives, opting out could mean being left behind, creating a form of existential inequality between those who embrace digitization and those who resist it. Furthermore, what happens if uploaded versions of ourselves behave differently from our original selves? Could they develop divergent personalities, desires, or values, leading to conflicts over identity and ownership? Another pressing concern is whether uploaded consciousness truly constitutes you. Philosophers debate whether personal identity persists across such transformations, questioning whether continuity of self depends on physical embodiment or simply the preservation of psychological traits. Some argue that if an uploaded version retains all your memories, preferences, and quirks, then it effectively is you, regardless of the medium. Others counter that consciousness cannot be separated from its biological origins without losing something essential: intuition, emotion, or perhaps even soulfulness. These debates echo broader discussions about the nature of consciousness itself, probing whether subjective experience arises solely from information processing or requires additional, irreducible qualities. Privacy and security also loom large in discussions of digital immortality. Once uploaded, minds could be vulnerable to hacking, manipulation, or exploitation. Imagine malicious actors gaining access to your digital persona, altering your memories, or forcing you to perform unwanted actions. The very act of storing consciousness online introduces risks akin to those faced by any digital asset, only amplified by the stakes involved. Moreover, who controls these uploaded entities? Do they retain legal rights, or do corporations and governments hold sway over their existence? Such questions expose the potential for abuse inherent in commodifying human consciousness. Finally, there is the question of equity. Even if mind uploading becomes technically possible, will it be accessible to everyone or reserved for the wealthy elite? History suggests that transformative technologies often exacerbate existing inequalities, widening gaps between haves and have-nots. A future where only the privileged enjoy digital immortality risks entrenching social hierarchies, creating a dystopian divide between eternal elites and mortal masses. Addressing these disparities requires careful consideration of how such technologies are developed, distributed, and regulated. Despite these challenges, the allure of escaping death remains irresistible to many. For centuries, humans have sought ways to cheat mortality, from alchemy and elixirs to cryonics and cloning. Digital immortality offers a tantalizingly modern solution, promising not just extended life but liberation from the frailties of the body altogether. It invites us to imagine futures where aging ceases to exist, disease loses its grip, and human potential expands exponentially. Yet, beneath this utopian promise lies a labyrinth of ethical, philosophical, and existential dilemmas, reminding us that progress always comes at a cost. The implications of digital immortality extend far beyond the technical hurdles of mind uploading, delving into profound questions about what it means to be human. On one hand, the prospect of escaping death holds undeniable appeal, offering freedom from suffering, decay, and loss. On the other, it raises troubling uncertainties about whether uploaded consciousness retains the essence of personhood, and whether pursuing such a path ultimately diminishes rather than enhances our humanity. One of the most compelling arguments in favor of digital immortality is its potential to eliminate the fear of death. Throughout history, mortality has loomed as humanity's greatest adversary, shaping religions, philosophies, and cultural practices. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen under the shadow of impermanence, seeking meaning amidst the inevitability of extinction. Digital immortality promises to dissolve this specter, replacing dread with hope. Freed from the constraints of biology, individuals could pursue endless learning, exploration, and creation, unhindered by the ticking clock of time. Art, science, and innovation might flourish as never before, driven by minds unburdened by fatigue, illness, or old age. Moreover, digital immortality could revolutionize relationships, allowing loved ones to remain together indefinitely. Families separated by death could reunite in virtual spaces, forging bonds that transcend physical boundaries. Friendships and partnerships severed by tragedy might endure eternally, sustained by shared experiences immortalized in code. These possibilities evoke visceral longing, tapping into universal desires for connection and belonging. They also challenge traditional notions of grief and mourning, suggesting that closure need not mean separation. Instead, remembrance becomes reunion, transforming loss into continuity. Yet, for all its promise, digital immortality carries significant risks that threaten to undermine the very qualities that make us human. Chief among these is the danger of losing authenticity. Human identity is deeply rooted in imperfection. Flaws, contradictions, and vulnerabilities shape who we are, providing texture and depth to our lives. Uploading consciousness into a flawless, algorithmic framework risks erasing these nuances, reducing rich inner worlds to sterile data streams. Without the unpredictability of biology, would uploaded versions of ourselves retain spontaneity, creativity, or emotional resonance? Or would they become hollow imitations, replicating surface behaviors while lacking genuine substance? This tension between enhancement and erosion extends to ethical considerations as well. If uploaded minds gain autonomy, how do we ensure they respect moral principles? Could they succumb to hubris, wielding godlike powers irresponsibly? Conversely, If they remain subordinate to creators or controllers, do they forfeit agency entirely, becoming mere tools rather than sentient beings? These scenarios blur the line between liberation and enslavement, raising uncomfortable parallels with historical abuses of power. The specter of digital tyranny looms large, warning against unchecked ambition in pursuit of immortality. Philosophical debates further complicate matters, centering on whether uploaded consciousness truly constitutes you. Identity hinges on continuity, not just of memory but of experience, perspective, and self-awareness. If an uploaded version diverges significantly from its original due to environmental differences or intentional modifications, does it still qualify as the same person? Consider two identical twins separated at birth. Though genetically indistinguishable, their distinct life paths render them fundamentally different individuals. Similarly, an uploaded mind might evolve along trajectories unforeseen by its creator, raising doubts about whether it shares anything beyond superficial resemblance with its source. Cultural narratives reflect these ambiguities, oscillating between celebration and caution. Science fiction has long grappled with themes of digitized existence, portraying both utopias and dystopias born of technological ambition. Films like Her and Ex Machina explore the emotional complexities of interacting with artificial intelligences, highlighting tensions between intimacy and alienation. Novels like Richard K. Morgan's Altered Carbon depict societies grappling with the consequences of transferring consciousness between bodies, exposing fault lines in class, ethics, and identity. Through such works, creators distill abstract concepts into relatable stories, inviting audiences to empathize with protagonists caught between worlds. Scientific developments add another layer of complexity. Recent breakthroughs in neurotechnology hint at the feasibility of mind uploading, albeit incrementally. Brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink demonstrate the potential for bidirectional communication between organic and synthetic systems, paving the way for hybrid architectures bridging biology and machinery. Meanwhile, advances in quantum computing suggest theoretical frameworks capable of simulating neural networks at unprecedented scales. Together, these innovations bring us closer to realizing digital immortality, but also amplify attendant risks, underscoring the dual-edged sword of progress. Ultimately, weighing the benefits of digital immortality against its risks reveals no easy answers. Escaping death offers unparalleled opportunities for growth, connection, and discovery. Yet, losing touch with humanity's core attributes threatens to hollow out existence, leaving behind facsimiles devoid of soul. Whether uploaded consciousness remains you depends largely on interpretation, shaped by values, beliefs, and priorities. For some, the prospect of indefinite continuation outweighs concerns about authenticity. For others, preserving the essence of personhood takes precedence over prolonging life. Technology promises immortality, but what about the natural cycles that sustain life and death? Let's explore rebirth through nature's lens. As we marvel at the possibilities of digital immortality, we must also turn our attention to the rhythms of the natural world, the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal that define existence on Earth. While technology offers tantalizing solutions to mortality, nature reminds us of the beauty and wisdom embedded in impermanence. Join me now as we delve into the ancient dance of life and death, examining how decay nourishes new beginnings and how rebirth echoes through ecosystems and spiritual traditions alike. Together, we will uncover the profound interconnectedness of all living things, finding solace in the eternal flow of energy and matter. Rebirth through nature, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The phrase, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, resonates deeply within the human psyche, encapsulating a fundamental truth about life and death. All living things return to the earth, completing a cycle that sustains existence itself. This idea is not merely a poetic reflection on mortality, but also a scientific reality rooted in ecological processes. At its core lies the principle of recycling, nature's elegant mechanism for transforming death into new life. When organisms die, their bodies decompose, releasing nutrients back into the soil, water, and air. These elements are then absorbed by plants, which nourish herbivores, who in turn sustain predators, perpetuating an endless loop of renewal. In this way, death becomes not an end but a beginning, ensuring the continuity of life across generations. This natural process holds profound symbolic significance, particularly in spiritual traditions that emphasize interconnectedness and cyclical renewal. Buddhism, for instance, views death as part of samsara, the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth driven by karma. While the ultimate goal is liberation from this cycle through enlightenment, nirvana, the journey itself underscores the impermanence of all things. Life flows like a river, constantly changing yet ever-present, with each moment connected to those before and after it. Death, therefore, is not seen as a finality but as a transition, a shedding of one form to embrace another. This perspective fosters acceptance of mortality, encouraging individuals to live mindfully and compassionately, knowing that every action ripples outward, influencing countless lives. Paganism similarly reveres nature cycles, celebrating the interplay between life and death as sacred and inevitable. Many pagan traditions honor the seasons, recognizing them as metaphors for human experience. Spring symbolizes birth and growth, summer represents vitality and abundance, autumn signifies decay and preparation for rest, winter embodies stillness and renewal. Rituals such as harvest festivals and ancestral rites reflect this understanding, acknowledging death as both a loss and a gift. By returning to the earth, the dead contribute to the fertility of the land, sustaining crops and communities. This reciprocity reinforces a sense of belonging, not just to family or society but to the entire web of life. Ecological recycling extends beyond symbolism into practical applications. Decomposers like fungi, bacteria, and insects play critical roles in breaking down organic matter, converting complex compounds into simpler forms usable by other organisms. Without these unsung heroes, ecosystems would collapse under piles of detritus, unable to regenerate. Even human bodies participate in this grand exchange. Traditional burial practices allow corpses to decompose naturally, enriching the soil and supporting plant growth. Cremation, too, returns ashes to the earth, albeit indirectly, dispersing nutrients through wind and rain. Modern innovations like green burials and human composting take this concept further, aiming to minimize environmental impact while maximizing contribution to the planet's vitality. Religious texts and mythologies often mirror these ecological truths, weaving stories that highlight humanity's place within larger patterns of creation and destruction. The Bible speaks of humanity being formed from the dust of the ground and destined to return to it, reinforcing humility and gratitude. Indigenous cosmologies frequently depict humans as stewards of the earth, tasked with maintaining balance and harmony. Such narratives remind us that we are not separate from nature but integral parts of it, bound by shared origins and destinies. In contemporary culture, the imagery of ashes to ashes, dust to dust, continues to inspire art, literature, and philosophy. Poets evoke it to convey the fragility and resilience of existence, while scientists use it to illustrate the interconnectedness of ecosystems. Environmental movements draw upon this concept to advocate for sustainable practices, emphasizing that what we do to the earth ultimately affects us all. Whether viewed through religious, cultural, or ecological lenses, the cycle of decomposition and regeneration serves as a powerful reminder of our collective responsibility to nurture life, even as we confront its inevitable end. Contemplating the beauty of contributing to future generations invites us to reframe death not as an adversary but as a collaborator, a partner in the ongoing dance of existence. This perspective challenges deeply ingrained fears surrounding mortality, offering solace in the knowledge that our passing leaves behind more than grief and loss. Instead, it plants seeds, literal and metaphorical, that will flourish long after we are gone. Does this awareness soften the sting of mortality? For many, the answer is yes, though the degree varies depending on personal beliefs, values, and experiences. One of the most compelling aspects of ecological recycling is its universality. Regardless of wealth, status, or creed, every living being participates in this grand exchange. From the tiniest microbe to the mightiest oak, no organism escapes the cycle of life and death. This egalitarian quality fosters a sense of unity, reminding us that despite our differences, we share a common fate. It diminishes the isolation often associated with dying, replacing it with a feeling of inclusion in something vast and enduring. Knowing that your body will nourish plants, feed animals, or enrich the soil can provide comfort, grounding you in the knowledge that you remain part of the Earth story even after your individual chapter ends. Moreover, contemplating your legacy in terms of contribution rather than control shifts focus away from ego-driven concerns. Traditional notions of immortality often revolve around leaving behind monuments, achievements, or progeny, markers designed to resist oblivion. While admirable, these pursuits risk reducing life to a competition for permanence. Ecological perspectives offer an alternative framework, valuing participation over possession. Rather than striving to leave indelible marks, you embrace the transient beauty of giving yourself back to the world. This mindset aligns closely with Buddhist teachings on impermanence, which encourage detachment from material attachments and identification with the flow of existence. Similarly, pagan ethics emphasize reciprocity, urging individuals to give as much as they take, fostering balance within the community of life. Artistic expressions frequently capture this tension between permanence and transience, exploring the emotional resonance of decay and renewal. Consider Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where the protagonist grapples with the consequences of defying natural limits, creating life without regard for its eventual demise. Or reflect on Georgia O'Keeffe's paintings of flowers, skulls, and landscapes, which juxtapose vibrant colors with stark reminders of entropy. Through such works, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with protagonists caught between worlds. Scientific discoveries further illuminate the interconnectedness of all life, reinforcing the wisdom embedded in ancient philosophies. Advances in genetics reveal how DNA threads connect species across millennia, tracing lineages back to common ancestors. Studies of nutrient cycling demonstrate how seemingly disparate organisms rely on one another for survival, forming intricate networks of dependency. Together, these insights blur boundaries between self and other, challenging dualistic thinking and promoting holistic understanding. They also underscore humanity's role as stewards of the planet, entrusted with preserving conditions necessary for continued flourishing. Ethical considerations arise when contemplating contributions to future generations. How should we prioritize actions aimed at benefiting posterity versus addressing present needs? Should resources be allocated toward immediate crises or long-term sustainability? These questions defy easy answers, underscoring the moral ambiguity inherent in navigating a multiverse. Cultural narratives reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature and film frequently explore themes of duality and divergence, probing the psychological toll of confronting alternate selves. Works like Sliding Doors and Dark depict characters grappling with fractured identities, torn between loyalty to their original selves and curiosity about alternate paths. Through such stories, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with protagonists caught between worlds. Ultimately, whether digital immortality retains authenticity depends largely on interpretation, shaped by values, beliefs, and priorities. For some, the prospect of indefinite continuation outweighs concerns about genuineness. For others, preserving the essence of personhood takes precedence over prolonging life. As we marvel at the possibilities of technological transcendence, we must also turn our attention to the rhythms of the natural world, the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal that define existence on Earth. While technology offers tantalizing solutions to mortality, nature reminds us of the beauty and wisdom embedded in impermanence. Nature reminds us of continuity, but what about justice? Could there be a cosmic reckoning awaiting us after death? As we reflect on the cycles of life and death that sustain the Earth, we are reminded of the delicate balance between chaos and order, creation and destruction. Yet, amidst this natural harmony, questions of fairness and accountability linger. If the universe operates according to immutable laws, might there also exist mechanisms for judging actions, rewarding virtue, and punishing vice? Join me now as we delve into the realm of cosmic justice, exploring whether morality transcends mortal bounds and shapes destinies beyond the grave. Together, we will weigh the evidence for karmic consequences and divine judgment, seeking clarity amidst the mysteries of eternity. Karma and cosmic justice, balancing the scales. The concept of cosmic justice, whether framed as karma, divine judgment, or moral accountability, has been a cornerstone of human belief systems for millennia. Across cultures, religions, and philosophies, humanity has sought to make sense of the apparent imbalance between virtue and vice in this life by positing mechanisms that ensure fairness beyond the grave. At its essence, cosmic justice suggests that actions have consequences not only in the here and now but also in realms unseen, where every deed is weighed and every wrong is redressed. This idea resonates deeply with our innate desire for order and fairness, offering a framework to reconcile the injustices we witness or perpetrate in our fleeting mortal lives. In Eastern traditions, particularly Hinduism and Buddhism, the principle of karma serves as the foundation for understanding moral causality. Derived from Sanskrit, karma literally means action, but its implications extend far beyond mere behavior. Karma refers to an intricate system of cause and effect, where every thought, word, and deed generates energy that influences future outcomes. Good actions beget positive results, while harmful ones lead to suffering, creating a feedback loop that spans lifetimes. This mechanism operates independently of external enforcement, relying instead on the natural laws governing existence. For adherents, karma underscores personal responsibility, reminding individuals that they alone determine their fate through their choices. Liberation, moksha or nirvana, becomes attainable only when one transcends this cycle by cultivating detachment, compassion, and wisdom. Western monotheistic faiths approach cosmic justice differently, often framing it in terms of divine judgment. In Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, God, or Allah, is envisioned as an omniscient arbiter who observes human conduct and metes out rewards or punishments accordingly. Upon death, souls face evaluation based on their earthly deeds, determining their eternal destination: heaven, hell, or intermediary states like purgatory. These belief systems emphasize accountability before a higher power, reinforcing ethical behavior through promises of reward and threats of retribution. While the specifics vary, Christianity's emphasis on grace versus Islam's focus on deeds, the underlying premise remains consistent. Morality matters because it shapes one's afterlife. Indigenous spiritualities and animist traditions offer yet another perspective, blending elements of both karmic and judicial frameworks. Many indigenous cosmologies view the universe as inherently interconnected, with all actions rippling outward to affect the whole. Spirits, ancestors, and natural forces play active roles in maintaining balance, intervening when necessary to correct imbalances caused by human folly. Rituals, offerings, and ceremonies serve as means of restoring harmony, acknowledging humanity's dependence on reciprocal relationships with the non-human world. Here, justice is less about individual accountability than collective well-being, reflecting a holistic worldview that prioritizes community over self. Secular philosophies grapple with similar questions, albeit without invoking supernatural agents. Existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre argue that morality arises from human freedom and choice rather than divine decree or cosmic law. Without external enforcers, individuals bear sole responsibility for creating meaning and upholding ethical standards. This radical autonomy can feel liberating, empowering people to define their own values. However, it also imposes immense pressure, as there are no guarantees of ultimate fairness. Absurdists like Albert Camus further complicate matters, suggesting that life's inherent randomness renders justice elusive, a challenge we must confront with courage and creativity. Modern science occasionally intersects with these discussions, particularly in fields like quantum mechanics and evolutionary biology. Some theorists speculate about whether the universe itself exhibits properties akin to morality, such as entropy favoring cooperation over conflict. Others explore how social instincts evolved to promote group cohesion, arguing that altruism and reciprocity emerged as survival strategies. While these explanations lack the metaphysical certainty of religious doctrines, they provide intriguing parallels, hinting at universal principles underpinning human ethics. Despite their diversity, these interpretations share a common thread: the conviction that morality cannot exist in isolation, it requires consequences to sustain it. Whether enforced by karmic laws, divine will, ancestral spirits, or biological imperatives, the notion of cosmic justice speaks to humanity's enduring hope that good triumphs over evil, even if delayed. It offers solace amidst uncertainty, assuring us that effort yields results and wrongdoing carries penalties. Yet, beneath this comforting veneer lie profound complexities, raising difficult questions about fairness, free will, and the nature of morality itself. The implications of cosmic justice stretch far beyond abstract theology, influencing how individuals and societies navigate questions of morality, purpose, and legacy. Does the promise or threat of posthumous reckoning inspire virtuous living, or does it impose undue burdens? Can morality persist without consequences, or does it collapse into nihilism? These debates reveal the dual-edged sword of cosmic justice, capable of fostering both comfort and coercion. For many, the assurance of cosmic justice provides profound psychological relief. In a world rife with inequality and injustice, the idea that wrongdoers will eventually face retribution, and victims' vindication, offers a semblance of equilibrium. Imagine a grieving parent finding solace in the belief that their child's untimely death was not meaningless but part of a larger plan orchestrated by a benevolent deity. Or consider a marginalized individual drawing strength from the knowledge that systemic oppression will ultimately be dismantled by karmic forces. Such convictions enable resilience, transforming despair into determination. They remind us that even when justice seems absent, it may simply be deferred, awaiting revelation in due time. This sense of delayed gratification extends to moral decision-making, encouraging patience and perseverance. Knowing that immediate outcomes do not dictate ultimate success motivates individuals to act ethically despite adverse circumstances. A whistleblower exposing corruption, for instance, might endure ostracism or retaliation but take comfort in the belief that truth will prevail eventually. Similarly, charitable acts performed anonymously gain significance when viewed through the lens of cosmic justice, affirming that generosity need not seek recognition to yield dividends. These examples highlight how notions of accountability reinforce ethical behavior, anchoring ideals in tangible incentives. Yet, for others, cosmic justice evokes anxiety rather than assurance. The prospect of eternal damnation or karmic punishment can paralyze decision-making, fostering fear rather than freedom. Consider someone paralyzed by guilt over past mistakes, convinced they have doomed themselves to perpetual suffering. Or imagine communities rigidly enforcing moral codes, punishing transgressions harshly to avoid divine wrath. Such scenarios risk reducing morality to compliance, prioritizing superficial conformity over genuine compassion. Moreover, the emphasis on consequences can obscure intrinsic motivations, shifting focus from doing good for its own sake to avoiding bad repercussions. When morality becomes transactional, it risks losing authenticity, devolving into calculation rather than conviction. Philosophical critiques further complicate matters, questioning whether morality necessitates consequences at all. Existentialists argue that true virtue arises from embracing responsibility without expectation of reward or fear of penalty. To act morally solely for personal gain undermines the spirit of altruism, replacing selflessness with self-interest. Absurdists echo this sentiment, asserting that life's inherent randomness renders justice elusive, a condition we must accept rather than resist. From this perspective, clinging to notions of cosmic justice reflects denial rather than acceptance, perpetuating illusions of control in an uncontrollable universe. Cultural narratives reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature and film frequently explore themes of retribution and redemption, probing the emotional toll of confronting moral failings. Works like Dante's Divine Comedy and Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment delve into the psyche of characters grappling with guilt, remorse, and redemption, highlighting tensions between legalism and grace. Films like The Green Mile and Atonement depict protagonists wrestling with the weight of their actions, torn between loyalty to their original selves and curiosity about alternate paths. Through such stories, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with protagonists caught between worlds. Scientific developments add another layer of complexity. Recent breakthroughs in neurotechnology hint at the feasibility of mind uploading, albeit incrementally. Brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink demonstrate the potential for bidirectional communication between organic and synthetic systems, paving the way for hybrid architectures bridging biology and machinery. Meanwhile, advances in quantum computing suggest theoretical frameworks capable of simulating neural networks at unprecedented scales. Together, these innovations bring us closer to realizing digital immortality, but also amplify attendant risks, underscoring the dual-edged sword of progress. Ultimately, weighing the benefits of cosmic justice against its risks reveals no easy answers. Escaping death offers unparalleled opportunities for growth, connection, and discovery. Yet, losing touch with humanity's core attributes threatens to hollow out existence, leaving behind facsimiles devoid of soul. Whether uploaded consciousness remains you depends largely on interpretation, shaped by values, beliefs, and priorities. For some, the prospect of indefinite continuation outweighs concerns about authenticity. For others, preserving the essence of personhood takes precedence over prolonging life. Cosmic justice appeals to fairness, but what about chaos? Let's confront the randomness of existence and death. As we marvel at the possibilities of technological transcendence, we must also turn our attention to the rhythms of the natural world, the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal that define existence on Earth. While technology offers tantalizing solutions to mortality, nature reminds us of the beauty and wisdom embedded in impermanence. Join me now as we delve into the ancient dance of life and death, examining how decay nourishes new beginnings and how rebirth echoes through ecosystems and spiritual traditions alike. Together, we will uncover the profound interconnectedness of all living things, finding solace in the eternal flow of energy and matter. Chaos and randomness. No grand design. The notion that life is governed by chaos and randomness stands in stark contrast to the comforting narratives of cosmic justice, divine purpose, or eternal recurrence. It suggests that existence lacks a grand design, that the universe operates without intent, meaning, or moral order. This perspective finds its roots in nihilism, existentialism, and scientific observations of randomness, each offering distinct yet overlapping insights into the nature of reality. Together, they challenge humanity's enduring need for structure and significance, forcing us to confront the unsettling possibility that life may indeed be devoid of inherent purpose. Nihilism, perhaps the most extreme articulation of this worldview, posits that life has no intrinsic value or meaning. Rooted in the Latin word nihil, meaning nothing, nihilism asserts that all pursuits, whether intellectual, artistic, or ethical, are ultimately futile. Friedrich Nietzsche famously declared that God is dead, signaling the collapse of traditional religious frameworks that once provided moral authority and existential grounding. Without a divine architect overseeing creation, human endeavors lose their metaphysical justification, leaving individuals adrift in a sea of uncertainty. For nihilists, this realization can evoke despair, as it strips away illusions of permanence and importance. However, some interpret nihilism not as a condemnation but as an invitation, an opportunity to embrace freedom unencumbered by preordained roles or expectations. Existentialism builds upon nihilism's foundation but diverges significantly in its conclusions. While acknowledging the absence of inherent meaning, existentialists argue that humans possess the capacity and responsibility to create their own purpose. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir emphasize radical autonomy, asserting that individuals are condemned to be free. This freedom comes with immense weight. Since there are no universal guidelines dictating how one should live, every choice carries profound implications. Existential dread arises from this burden, as people grapple with the enormity of crafting meaning amidst ambiguity. Yet, existentialism also celebrates human creativity and resilience, portraying life as a blank canvas awaiting interpretation. By rejecting predetermined paths, existentialists find liberation in self-determination, urging others to embrace authenticity over conformity. Scientific perspectives on randomness further illuminate the chaotic underpinnings of existence. Quantum mechanics, in particular, reveals a universe far less predictable than classical physics once suggested. At subatomic levels, particles behave probabilistically rather than deterministically, defying conventional notions of cause and effect. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle encapsulates this unpredictability, stating that certain properties, like position and momentum, cannot be simultaneously measured with precision. Such findings undermine deterministic models of reality, suggesting instead that chance plays a fundamental role in shaping outcomes. Evolutionary biology echoes this theme, demonstrating how random mutations and environmental pressures drive natural selection. Even astronomical phenomena, such as asteroid impacts or supernovae, occur without discernible pattern, influencing planetary histories in unpredictable ways. Together, these disciplines paint a picture of a cosmos indifferent to human concerns, a realm where events unfold according to probabilities rather than plans. This randomness extends beyond physical processes to encompass broader aspects of life, including relationships, careers, and personal growth. Accidents happen, opportunities arise unexpectedly, dreams dissolve despite best efforts. These experiences underscore the fragility of control, reminding us that much of what defines our lives lies beyond conscious influence. Cultural narratives often reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature and film frequently explore themes of randomness and inevitability, probing the emotional toll of confronting fate's capriciousness. Works like Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot and Albert Camus' The Myth of Sisyphus delve into the absurdity of searching for meaning in a chaotic world. Characters wrestle with futility, questioning whether perseverance holds value when outcomes remain uncertain. Films like No Country for Old Men and The Tree of Life similarly depict protagonists navigating landscapes shaped by chance, torn between loyalty to their original selves and curiosity about alternate paths. Through such stories, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with characters caught between worlds. Philosophical debates further complicate matters, centering on whether morality persists without consequences or collapses into nihilism. Some argue that ethics derive from rational deliberation rather than external enforcement, emphasizing humanity's ability to construct principles independently of divine decree or karmic law. Others counter that randomness undermines accountability, rendering moral judgments arbitrary or obsolete. These discussions expose fault lines in contemporary thought, challenging assumptions about fairness, free will, and the nature of morality itself. Ultimately, embracing chaos requires courage, a willingness to face uncertainty head-on without seeking refuge in false certainties. Whether framed as nihilism, existentialism, or scientific observation, the recognition of randomness forces us to re-evaluate long-held beliefs about identity, agency, and legacy. It invites us to imagine futures unconstrained by tradition, fostering innovation while provoking introspection. As we peer into the abyss of meaninglessness, we discover not emptiness but potential, a vast expanse awaiting exploration and interpretation. Confronting the discomfort of meaninglessness demands both intellectual rigor and emotional fortitude. If life lacks inherent purpose, does this render existence hollow, or does it liberate us to forge new meanings? Can we find purpose despite, or because of, chaos? These questions strike at the heart of human vulnerability, revealing the paradoxical interplay between despair and hope, fear and freedom. For many, the absence of a grand design evokes visceral unease. Imagine waking each morning aware that today holds no predetermined significance, that your actions lack cosmic endorsement. Such awareness strips away familiar anchors, leaving behind a void difficult to fill. Tasks once imbued with urgency, career ambitions, familial obligations, creative pursuits, risk losing luster under relentless duplication. Mundane routines transform into rituals. Ordinary encounters take on extraordinary weight. Life ceases to feel ephemeral and instead radiates permanence, offering solace amidst impermanence. Yet, within this void lies unparalleled opportunity. Freed from prescribed roles, individuals gain unprecedented flexibility to define themselves anew. Consider artists experimenting boldly, unshackled by commercial constraints or critical acclaim. Or envision activists championing causes deemed quixotic, driven solely by conviction rather than consensus. These examples highlight how chaos fosters innovation, empowering people to pursue passions authentically rather than conventionally. They remind us that even amidst uncertainty, creativity thrives, transforming silence into symphony. Artistic expressions frequently capture this tension between permanence and transience, exploring the emotional resonance of decay and renewal. Poets evoke it to convey the fragility and resilience of existence, while scientists use it to illustrate the interconnectedness of ecosystems. Recent breakthroughs in neurotechnology hint at the feasibility of mind uploading, albeit incrementally. Brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink demonstrate the potential for bidirectional communication between organic and synthetic systems, paving the way for hybrid architectures bridging biology and machinery. Meanwhile, advances in quantum computing suggest theoretical frameworks capable of simulating neural networks at unprecedented scales. Together, these innovations bring us closer to realizing digital immortality, but also amplify attendant risks, underscoring the dual-edged sword of progress. Ethical considerations arise when contemplating contributions to future generations. How should we prioritize actions aimed at benefiting posterity versus addressing present needs? Should resources be allocated toward immediate crises or long-term sustainability? These questions defy easy answers, underscoring the moral ambiguity inherent in navigating a multiverse. Cultural narratives reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature and film frequently explore themes of duality and divergence, probing the psychological toll of confronting alternate selves. Works like Sliding Doors and Dark depict characters grappling with fractured identities, torn between loyalty to their original selves and curiosity about alternate paths. Through such stories, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with protagonists caught between worlds. Ultimately, weighing the benefits of digital immortality against its risks reveals no easy answers. Escaping death offers unparalleled opportunities for growth, connection, and discovery. Yet, losing touch with humanity's core attributes threatens to hollow out existence, leaving behind facsimiles devoid of soul. Whether uploaded consciousness remains you depends largely on interpretation, shaped by values, beliefs, and priorities. For some, the prospect of indefinite continuation outweighs concerns about authenticity. For others, preserving the essence of personhood takes precedence over prolonging life. Chaos challenges us to create our own meaning. But ultimately, we must face the final question: why do we care so deeply about death? As we marvel at the possibilities of technological transcendence, we must also turn our attention to the rhythms of the natural world, the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal that define existence on Earth. While technology offers tantalizing solutions to mortality, nature reminds us of the beauty and wisdom embedded in impermanence. Join me now as we delve into the ancient dance of life and death, examining how decay nourishes new beginnings and how rebirth echoes through ecosystems and spiritual traditions alike. Together, we will uncover the profound interconnectedness of all living things, finding solace in the eternal flow of energy and matter. Facing mortality, why we fear the end. Fear of death is one of humanity's most primal instincts, woven deeply into the fabric of our evolutionary biology, psychology, and cultural heritage. This fear is not merely an abstract or intellectual concern, it is visceral, instinctual, and universal. Across time and geography, humans have grappled with the inevitability of their own demise, seeking ways to mitigate its terror through rituals, philosophies, and creative expressions. Yet, despite millennia of contemplation, death remains the great unknown, a threshold we all must cross but cannot fully comprehend. To understand why we fear death, and how confronting it can enrich life, we must examine the evolutionary, psychological, and cultural forces that shape this fear. From an evolutionary perspective, the fear of death serves as a survival mechanism, hardwired into our brains to ensure the continuation of our species. Early humans who were acutely aware of threats, predators, environmental dangers, rival tribes, were more likely to survive long enough to reproduce and pass on their genes. This heightened sensitivity to danger evolved into a generalized aversion to mortality, manifesting as anxiety about anything that threatens existence. Even today, this instinct drives much of human behavior. We seek safety, avoid risks, and prioritize longevity, often unconsciously guided by the specter of death. Evolutionary psychologists argue that this fear is adaptive, motivating individuals to protect themselves and their communities while fostering cooperation and innovation. Psychologically, the fear of death stems from our unique capacity for self-awareness, a double-edged sword that allows us to plan, dream, and create but also forces us to confront our impermanence. Unlike other animals, humans possess a sophisticated sense of identity, memory, and foresight, enabling us to imagine futures that extend far beyond our lifespans. This cognitive leap brings immense benefits but also profound costs. Awareness of death disrupts our psychological equilibrium, creating what existential psychologist Irvin Yalom calls death anxiety, a pervasive unease rooted in the recognition that life is finite. This anxiety manifests differently across individuals and cultures, ranging from subtle discomfort to paralyzing dread. Some cope by denying death altogether, immersing themselves in distractions or clinging to beliefs in eternal afterlives. Others confront mortality directly, using it as a catalyst for growth and transformation. Cultural factors further amplify our fear of death, shaping how societies interpret and respond to mortality. Every culture develops narratives, rituals, and institutions designed to manage the uncertainty surrounding death. Religious doctrines often promise salvation, reincarnation, or reunion with loved ones, providing comfort amidst chaos. Art, literature, and music frequently explore themes of loss and legacy, offering catharsis and connection. Funerary practices, from elaborate tombs to simple cremations, serve as communal acts of remembrance, affirming the continuity of relationships even in the face of separation. These cultural frameworks reflect humanity's collective effort to impose order on the randomness of death, transforming fear into meaning. Yet, beneath these external structures lies a deeper truth: death is inherently unknowable. No matter how many stories we tell or rituals we perform, the moment of transition remains shrouded in mystery. This ambiguity fuels our fascination with death, inspiring endless speculation about what, if anything, lies beyond. Philosophers debate whether consciousness persists after bodily death, scientists probe the mysteries of near-death experiences, and artists depict alternate realities where time bends and souls endure. Each attempt reveals not only what we believe but also what we hope, fear, and cherish most deeply. Confronting mortality, therefore, becomes both a personal and collective endeavor. On an individual level, reflecting on death can foster clarity, gratitude, and purpose. Knowing that life is fleeting encourages us to prioritize meaningful pursuits over trivial distractions, deepening our connections with others and ourselves. Psychologists refer to this phenomenon as mortality salience, the heightened awareness of one's own mortality that prompts existential reflection. When approached constructively, mortality salience leads to greater authenticity, resilience, and compassion. Conversely, avoiding or suppressing thoughts of death often results in stagnation, denial, or despair. On a societal level, grappling with mortality shapes cultural norms, values, and aspirations. Civilizations rise and fall based on how they address questions of life and death, balancing pragmatism with idealism. Advances in medicine, technology, and ethics emerge from humanity's shared desire to extend life and alleviate suffering. Artistic movements capture shifting attitudes toward mortality, from Romanticism's celebration of transience to modernism's embrace of fragmentation. Even political systems reflect underlying assumptions about death. Democracies emphasize equality and legacy, while authoritarian regimes prioritize control and perpetuity. Together, these dynamics underscore the centrality of mortality in shaping human experience. Ultimately, fear of death reveals as much about who we are as it does about what we lack. It exposes our vulnerabilities, the fragility of bodies, the brevity of time, the limits of knowledge, while simultaneously highlighting our strengths: the courage to face uncertainty, the creativity to imagine alternatives, and the resilience to persevere despite adversity. By examining the roots of this fear, we gain insight into the human condition itself, a tapestry woven from threads of wonder, dread, longing, and resolve. Encouraging viewers, or anyone, to embrace curiosity rather than fear when facing death requires navigating a delicate balance between acceptance and resistance. Death, though unknowable, connects us to something greater than ourselves, serving as a reminder of our interconnectedness with all living beings and the cyclical rhythms of nature. To cultivate this perspective is not to dismiss the emotional weight of mortality, but to reframe it as a source of wisdom and inspiration. By leaning into the mystery rather than retreating from it, we unlock new dimensions of meaning, creativity, and connection. Curiosity about death begins with acknowledging its dual nature. It is both an ending and a beginning, a boundary and a bridge. On one hand, death marks the cessation of individual experience, severing ties with loved ones and leaving behind unfinished projects. On the other hand, it contributes to larger processes of renewal and regeneration, ensuring the continuity of life across generations. Consider the ecological metaphor of decomposition. When organisms die, their bodies break down into nutrients that nourish plants, which in turn sustain herbivores, predators, and entire ecosystems. In this way, death becomes not a final act but part of an ongoing cycle, echoing through time and space. This duality extends beyond physical processes to encompass symbolic and spiritual dimensions. Many traditions view death as a transformative event, marking the transition from one state of being to another. Hinduism describes samsara, the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, governed by karma. Buddhism envisions nirvana, liberation from suffering achieved through enlightenment. Christianity promises resurrection, where souls ascend to eternal communion with God. While interpretations vary, these frameworks share a common emphasis on continuity, suggesting that death does not obliterate existence but transforms it. Even secular perspectives recognize this potential for metamorphosis, framing death as an opportunity for reinvention, whether through legacy, memory, or influence. Artists and thinkers throughout history have explored this tension between finitude and infinity, crafting works that illuminate the beauty and complexity of mortality. Poets like Emily Dickinson and Rainer Maria Rilke confront death head-on, weaving elegies that oscillate between grief and transcendence. Visual artists such as Frida Kahlo and Damien Hirst depict decay and vitality side by side, challenging viewers to reconcile opposites. Musicians compose requiems and ballads that honor the departed while celebrating life's ephemeral nature. Through these creations, they distill universal truths into accessible forms, inviting audiences to engage emotionally and intellectually with mortality. Scientific inquiry offers another avenue for cultivating curiosity about death. Advances in neuroscience, quantum mechanics, and astrophysics provide tantalizing glimpses into the mysteries of consciousness, causality, and cosmology. Near-death experiences, NDEs, once dismissed as hallucinations, now prompt rigorous investigation into the brain's activity during critical moments. Studies reveal gamma wave surges shortly after cardiac arrest, suggesting brief bursts of heightened awareness before complete shutdown. Similarly, quantum theories speculate about non-local consciousness, positing that aspects of the mind might persist outside conventional spacetime constraints. Though speculative, These findings hint at possibilities previously relegated to science fiction, expanding our understanding of what it means to live and die. Philosophical debates further enrich this exploration, probing whether morality, identity, and purpose persist beyond death. Existentialists argue that life gains significance precisely because it ends, urging individuals to craft meaning amidst uncertainty. Absurdists echo this sentiment, asserting that embracing randomness fosters authenticity and resilience. Meanwhile, ethical discussions focus on how societies should navigate mortality, balancing autonomy with accountability. Should euthanasia be legalized? How do we honor the wishes of the dying without imposing undue burdens on survivors? These questions defy easy answers, underscoring the moral ambiguity inherent in confronting mortality. Cultural narratives reflect these tensions, oscillating between celebration and caution. Literature and film frequently explore themes of legacy and loss, probing the emotional toll of confronting mortality. Works like The Road by Cormac McCarthy and Arrival, directed by Denis Villeneuve, delve into characters wrestling with grief, regret, and redemption. Protagonists grapple with futility, questioning whether perseverance holds value when outcomes remain uncertain. Films like The Tree of Life and Her similarly depict protagonists navigating landscapes shaped by chance, torn between loyalty to their original selves and curiosity about alternate paths. Through such stories, creators distill complex emotions into accessible forms, inviting audiences to empathize with characters caught between worlds. Ultimately, embracing curiosity about death transforms fear into fuel for art, activism, introspection, and connection. It reminds us that life's brevity amplifies its preciousness, prompting us to savor each moment fully. Whether framed as nihilism, existentialism, or scientific observation, the recognition of mortality forces us to re-evaluate long-held beliefs about identity, agency, and legacy. It invites us to imagine futures unconstrained by tradition, fostering innovation while provoking introspection. As we peer into the abyss of meaninglessness, we discover not emptiness but potential, a vast expanse awaiting exploration and interpretation. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the great unknown. Whether answers await us or not, I hope these reflections brought clarity, or perhaps gentle wonder. Sleep well, and dream wisely. As we conclude this exploration of mortality, let us carry forward the insights gained, not as definitive conclusions but as invitations to continue questioning, learning, and growing. The mystery of death may never yield all its secrets, but in seeking them, we uncover treasures hidden within ourselves: courage, creativity, compassion, and connection. These qualities define us not in spite of our mortality but because of it. They remind us that while death may end individual lives, it cannot extinguish the enduring spirit of humanity, a flame passed from generation to generation, illuminating the path ahead. May your dreams tonight be filled with wonder, and may tomorrow bring opportunities to embrace life with renewed purpose and presence.